Half a day and good afternoon. Thank you all for being here. Excuse me. The Committee on Education, Air Transportation, and Statistics Research and Planning will now convene this confirmation hearing. Today is May 23rd, 2019, and it is 5:10 in the afternoon. For the record and in accordance with the open government law, public notices were sent out via email to all senators, stakeholders, and all main media broadcasting outlets on May 16, 2019, and the second notice on May 20th, 2019. Notice of today's public hearing was also available on the Guam Legislature's website. With me today is Senator Amanda Shelton, who is also the Vice Chair on Education, Senator Telo Taitagui, Senator Regine Bisco-Lee, and Senator Therese Terlahi, who is the Vice Chair for the overall committee. The appointment on today's agenda, we have the appointment of Mr. Brian Bamba to serve as a member of the AB Wanpat International Airport Authority Board of Directors, the appointment of Ms. Doyan An Murato to serve as a member of the AB Wanpat International Airport Authority Board of Directors. I'd first like to call up Mr. Brian Bamba and those who'd like to submit testimony on his behalf. And then if you could please just state your name for the record before you submit testimony. So, Mr. Bamba, we will save you for last, and we will allow former Senator Bamba and then a representative from ITNE to submit testimony. Go ahead and press it.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and also members of the committee. It's an honor to be here with you today in this historic building. And I also want to, first of all, I wanted to thank you for scheduling the hearing for Brian, and also to thank the governor, Governor Liu, and Lieutenant Governor Josh for the confidence they have in appointing Brian to what is a very important board. I'm sorry I don't have any written testimony, but I feel that since I've known him since birth, I can probably speak with some authority and knowledge of his background, his character, and his accomplishments. Joyce and I are extremely proud of Brian. He first, since graduating from USF, the first position that he ever had, actually, coming back to Guam, and he was with one of his classmates, his friends, and they were hired by the airport authority. The airport authority at that time was undergoing a massive the modernization of, and they were responsible for developing the financial plan and the bond financing plan as part of the overall master plan for the airport authority. And I was privileged to have served in the legislature at that time, which gave the final approval to proceed with the expansion program. So it's kind of come full circle for me, certainly, to be sitting here, because comes at a time for the airport where they're embarking on another major expansion plan. And I think that the people that they have, certainly that the governor has appointed, I believe, are certainly much more capable very capable in enacting and ensuring that the vision of that master plan and the projects that are going to be completed will continue to improve Guam's future. And for now and into the future for all of the people, and most especially for the development of the island. So it is a critical board, and I can say without hesitation that Brian is very well qualified, having worked in the private sector primarily for both transportation and in fuel supply operations, as well as other private sector businesses. And But I just wanted to mention that in addition to his private sector experience, government experience, he's also been very involved in the community organizations, and primarily, and I didn't really know this until much later, that he took up jiu-jitsu and worked himself up to a black belt. And of course, I found out that he was a black belt when he told me he was actually, he and some friends of his were setting up a gym to be able to mentor young kids and have them participate in the sports and instilling discipline in them, and just being able to mentor their progress. And so, and of course, he's also been very supportive of nonprofit organizations that always benefit the community, such as the Hospital Volunteers, as well as other notable organizations that have to do with the community. And as I said, it really brings me a great deal of pride and joy to be able to see the next generation of leaders, in addition to yourselves, that will be guiding this island and into a brighter future with a vision that would provide hope for our people, as well as sustain the economic development and social development of our island into the next millennium. So thank you, and I would humbly ask for your support for Brian, and that he'll be confirmed to serve on the board. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please state your name.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm Jim Olerking, and I'm CEO of IT&E here. And I haven't known Brian his whole life. I've been here for 4 years, but I've worked very closely with Brian. And I really feel he represents a very unique and important mix of qualities that I think would be critical in the development and activities currently going on at the airport. I think he's demonstrated in the 4 years I've worked with him a level of innovation and creativity, balanced with a strong business sense and a tremendous commitment to the community. I feel the airport projects going on are critical for the tourist industry and being the first entry point into Guam and creating the image, the first views of the environment here. I think the work that's going to go on now is going to be very critical for the long-term prosperity of the tourist industry and the image that Guam gives off to the visitors here. Again, I think his balance of creativity, innovation, and solid business sense will be very valuable in the activities that are going on and will continue to go on at the airport. And it's a very qualified and unique skill set that I think would provide great value. And I fully support his activity to be a member of the board. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Bamba?
I don't even know what to say anymore.
Just a moment. I guess there's someone that feels compelled to give testimony, so please state your name for the record. Go ahead and press the button in front of you. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Senators. My name is Candy Okuhama. I remember sitting in front of most of you just a year and a half ago for my ABC confirmation hearing. And thank you all again for supporting me. It was a bit nerve-wracking a year and a half ago. I still get the little bit jitters, so what I did was I'm going to read it from my phone, okay? I'm here to support Brian Bamba for a position on the Guam International Airport Authority. I've known Brian on professional level for over 20 years, and I believe he would be an excellent choice as a board member. Brian possesses all the necessary qualities to help shape a successful organization. Additionally, he desires to stay at the top of his game is clear as he consistently offers a fresh perspective and creative approach to projects. He remains focused on the big picture and lead the organization toward its goals. If given a chance to serve, Brian will become a strong member of the Guam International Airport Authority Board.
Thank you very much, Candy. Mr. Bamba, please.
Thank you. Buenas and Hafa Day, Senators, Madam Chair. Thank you for accommodating me during this time. My name is Brian Bamba, and I am honored to appear before the committee regarding my nomination to sit as a member of the Guam International Airport Authority Board of Directors. I'd like to thank everyone that came in support of me. It's quite humbling, and I've never really had this experience, but I feel very undeserving of your kindness, and I'm very grateful. Appearing in this historical building brings memories of my life as a child in a political family. I attended Cathedral right across the way, and I would come to this very building and every single day after school, and kind of it was my playground. And I was part of a generation of some unpaid runners, namely the Tanakas, the Durkings, Palomos, and the Dueñases, who we'd run around this place, and while our parents and our grandparents were forming the fabric of our community. So it's pretty humbling. And so I'm also appreciative and humbled by the governor, by Governor Leon Guerrero's and Lieutenant Governor Tenorio's confidence in considering me for a board member of the airport. And I've spent 99% of my career in the private sector. I think my dad even recounted more than I remember of myself and my career. And coincidentally, my one job in government service was in the airport authority as an administrative assistant, starting out and learning the operations and dealing with the folks who were master planning the expansion of the first expansion of the airport. And so I'm fairly familiar with the airport operations and the business of the airport, but by no means am I an expert. I'm pleased to see that many of the folks that I had worked with at the time have continued their development and now hold leadership roles in the authority, and it's a testament to the employees and the leadership up at the airport. The airport's in good hands, I believe, in Mr. Atta and Mr. Kanata, who are proven leaders in their own right, and as well as the hundreds of dedicated employees who service thousands of customers, airlines, and tenants who frequent and call the airport home. I feel that my experience in the private sector, where I lead over 300 employees, enables me to contribute to the policy of the policy leadership at the airport. My colleagues serve thousands of customers daily, and our business plays a very vital role in the quality of life that we enjoy here on our island. And I think the same, as well as in the region, and I think the same can be said about the airport. I'm also experienced in large-scale capital improvement projects in our own businesses, as well as complex commercial transactions and disputes, and similar to what the airport finds itself facing today. At the end of the day, I'm a citizen of this community, and I want what's good for us and for our people. And I'm a frequent traveler, and I'm a customer of airports, not just our own. And I understand what expectations customers have for airports when we travel. And my view is that airports move economies, and I don't need to explain what the importance of the airport has on our tourism business, which is the backbone of our economy. And so the challenges that the airport is facing are not small or insignificant, and resolving them requires collective efforts of the board and management. And I'm committed to the role of policy and equipping management with tools necessary to effectively run the airport. I believe that's the role that I've been nominated for. And so I commend you for your service to our community, and I look forward to your consideration of my nomination. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bamba. I'll open up any questions that my colleagues may have for you. Senator Shelton, would you like to go first?
Sujus Masi, Madam Chair, thank you very much, Mr. Bamba, for accepting the governor's nomination, and I thank all the people here today who came to testify in support of you. I'm, very impressed by what everyone here has said. These are people who are, very respected in our community, and so that gives me a lot of confidence in your ability to serve on the airport board. And I know that you have held this leadership position in your current role in the private sector, and I'm glad to hear that you do have some experience at the airport, which I think will bring value to your position there. So I just wanted to ask if you feel that taking on this role, you are obviously a very busy man, and your dad did mention that you're very involved in the community, and that's how I know you in these different community positions where you're very giving of your time, and I just want to make sure that you have the time to give to the airport and to these meetings and to give your efforts here in this another position to add on.
Sure. I know it's a huge commitment, and it's something that I'm looking forward to, so yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Shelton. Senator Tideway?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for everyone being here today to testify in support of Brian. I've known Brian for many years. In fact, I have to ask the question to Sissy. Do you agree with this confirmation? Okay, you got the head of household agreeing to you sitting here today, and that's half of the process, is having your family behind you and backing you up doing this, because it does require a lot of your time. And Brian, it's good to see you here because, there's a lot of things that you can be doing. And now you have the opportunity to give back to the community by serving in this capacity, And I thank you for that, because I know you're a wealth of knowledge. And I really appreciate you doing that. There is one thing when you do go to the airport, there is some funding in another agency that I feel that the airport should always been able to, well, I know you collaborate with, but, and I know airport is always looking for funding. And I think that a more closer relationship with the Guam Visitors Bureau and the airport might give an advantage to the airport, especially when it comes to funding. And so I hope that you reach out to Guam Visitors Bureau and really have a proactive approach with them in moving forward, because that's where you're going to find the money.
I agree.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much, Brian. Thank you. And to your family. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Lee?
Sujus Masi, Madam Chair, and I also want to thank the governor for putting forward your nomination to this board. Mr. Bamba, I want to thank you. I also want to thank your family for committing this time and accepting the governor's nomination. I want to thank Senator Bamba and Senator JQ, who have also joined us this afternoon in support of your confirmation. One of the questions that I wanted to ask is just in terms of conflicts of interest. So I know that you are employed by IP&E and you also have shares in a business. And so I wanted to ask you if you believe that your business involvement in this company and in the company that you work for could potentially create any issues with conflicts of interest.
So the company that I am a partner of isn't domiciled on Guam, so no, I don't see any issues there. On the matters of conflicts of interest, I think there's at least in a very professional environment, there are processes for handling potential conflicts, and I'm very transparent about that. So I don't have any issues of recusal or non-participation in anything that represents a potential conflict. So no.
Excellent, thank you. As a previous speaker had mentioned, tourism is our #1 industry, and the airport is the first and the final encounter that many of our tourists have with our beautiful island. And so you had mentioned that you are an avid traveler, and so I wanted to ask you, in your travels, what are some examples that we might be able to apply to our our local airport that you've seen, I mean, maybe even some low-hanging fruit that we might be able to go after to improve our airport?
Well, as a user of airport services, wherever I go, I'm always trying to get connected. And so some airports are not as easy to get connected. I'm talking from a telecommunication standpoint. And so when you are flying red-eye flights and you're in an airport for any amount of time, that's, you kind of just want to get out and get a shower. But the only thing you can do is sit around. And so being connected is something. And I think the airport has room to improve in its ability to service customers in that manner. There's a number of things. I don't really like to spend time sitting in an airport, but the experience that you have when you're laid over is you need to be comfortable, and amenities need to be accessible, and bathrooms need to be clean, and the place needs to be as convenient as possible. Yeah.
Thank you very much for the thoughtful response. I also want to encourage you, should you be confirmed, to really look into family services in our airports. It is a challenge for many young families who are visiting us, especially from the region. I'm sure you've visited airports like Narita and Incheon, and they have excellent family services, family restrooms, and I think that's one of the areas where we're lacking. So I'd really encourage you to look into that, as well as opportunities for our small local businesses to be able to be featured in our airports. I think there's been a movement towards that in the recent past, but encouraging more of that, I think, is a good idea. So I want to thank you again for accepting the governor's nomination, and thanks to our community stakeholders for coming out in support of Brian, and I look forward to voting in favor of your confirmation. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Lee. Senator Tlahi.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, Vice Speaker. Thank you all for your testimony. It's very helpful. And Brian, of course, thanks for accepting this nomination. If you don't mind, I'm going to ask you some questions for the record. That you talked earlier about whether there would be any potential conflict, and you talked about your business that you're a shareholder in. But what about your work? So you're still working for IP&E, and does
Yes.
IP&E do any business with the airport?
I don't know that we have business with the airport. We've done business before with the airport, where we've sold or provided fuel to a generator. But I do business with airlines, and my company does supply jet fuel to Ryder, which I don't view as a conflict because it has nothing to do with the airport authority. But as I mentioned earlier, I think the process, for my involvement, if any, that has to do with my company, would be a recusal or identification of any potential conflict of interest, and there should be processes in the authority and within the laws to allow that to be dealt with. So.
Thank you. And I'm glad that you stated for the record that you would be able to attend the meetings and participate despite the busy schedule and public service that you are already doing. The courts have cited GIAA recently for violations of transparency, open government. What are your feelings on that?
I mean, there'd be just my personal opinions. I don't want to speak on towards anything that is currently in litigation, or that I couldn't even tell you who the legal counsel is. So I think it's warranted that I discuss and get familiar with that. But I do believe that the issues of transparency are prerequisite, and the community demands that. So I don't have an issue with that. I just think that for this specific case, because it is before the courts, I don't think I'm at liberty to have an opinion either way.
Are you willing to put in the work to learn the open government law?
Absolutely.
And, take the time to challenge the attorneys and be briefed, and it looks like that's what the board is going to have to do going forward, to make sure that they've covered all aspects or potential liability, right?
Sure.
Similar with the procurement. So of course there's a big procurement challenge, and we're not going to talk about that one in particular, but how would you improve? I mean, do you think you have a role in the board to improve procurement, make sure that it's fair, or yeah?
I believe so. In my current business, we procure large items, small items, everything under the sun. And there are processes which we follow so that we eliminate a lot of these opportunities to create disputes. And so I think it's worth looking at the procurement process. I believe there is a good procurement process at the airport, and sometimes these things occur. But it's a matter of reviewing them, looking at what works, and doing more of that, and doing less of what doesn't work. So I'm open to that, and to learn the open government law, it behooves me to stay out of trouble. So of course.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. There's a lot of suspicion, I think, from the public that boards, are procuring from their favorite vendors sometimes, and so we want our board members to be sure that they do whatever it takes to show the opposite, that they're trying their best to be fair, that they're not writing specs that are specifically geared towards one company, and that we avoid that whenever possible. I wanted to follow up on your intentions regarding GVB, and also the airport is also, sometimes we come in here with customs, and one of customs' biggest contentions is that they're being charged by the airport. The airport says they're required to do that because of bonds, but I think it still behooves the airport to find another way. To be creative. So I'm happy to hear that almost everybody who testified said that that's one of your strengths. And I really believe in creativity when it comes to things like this, that we can find a way to take care of government services, right? Let those customs services be provided, and so we can expand customs so that we can get the inspections that are needed. But what are your intentions for the GVB? I heard your answer earlier to one of my colleagues.
Well, I don't have any specific ones, but my view is tourism drives our economy, and I don't think any one agency has a corner on its responsibility. I think everybody has a responsibility to work together because it is our main driver of our economies. And I think we'd be naive to say that GVB is the sole owner and responsible for bringing all those tourists into Guam. And likewise, everyone that steps off a plane has to fly one into an airport. They don't fly into Tumon, and they have to process through customs. So there isn't one independent ownership of that tourism engine. So I think it requires everyone to be on the same page.
Absolutely. I think you're right, because the airport is one of the most noted things, I think, on surveys when they talk about, it's their experiences leaving, coming in, that time that they spend, like you described earlier, waiting in lines versus other things. And right now, the airport's under construction. So I know GVB explained to us the efforts that they made for Golden Week to really go out of their way to help the tourist process faster through the airport in conjunction with many partners. And so, that's what I'm looking for with GIAA, that what they do is really going to impact our tourism very much. And they've got to make it as convenient as possible, right? Convenience, I think, is key. And so you're going to be partnering with federal agencies, other local agencies such as customs, and the better we can help each other, I think that's going to make a better experience for the tourists.
I agree. Thank you.
All right, those are all my questions, but I thank you again for your commitment to this. I know it's going to take a lot of time because I know the other people who serve on the board, they are really very committed and hard work. This is one of our challenging agencies because the stakes are very high, right? So it's a really global business. So
Sure.
Thank you again for your commitment, and thank you again for all your testimonies. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Chalahi. Mr. Bamba, I just want to acknowledge that all of my colleagues, they come from specialties. And so a lot of them come from experience working with GVB, working with families and local businesses, and then, of course, the attorney aspect of the law. So I want to thank you for being here, and please take everything that has been said to you with a grain of salt, and to do the due diligence. Right now, the airport is facing a lot of obstacles and challenges. One of them is the third floor corridor expansion, and I say this to every appointee that comes forward. we are in the multi-millions exceeding the cost that we anticipated to spend. Now we are trying to refinance bonds and perhaps purchase another bond through the airport, and that's a little bit scary to me because we are very close to our debt ceiling. The second issue is, again, the continuous litigation between LOTSE and DFS. And also it comes with a caveat with the violation of open government law, which is why I believe Senator Talahi has stated very valid points that we need to understand the open government law so that we don't make these mistakes. And perhaps they're not intended, and perhaps they weren't malicious, but for the ruling to be made that the board violated open government law is something very serious, especially if you are a member on the board. And last term I worked with Customs and Quarantine, and some of the challenges they had was because of the bond covenants is to have to pay an enormous amount of rent. But how they would channel that money is the airport would receive the fees and then take off the top what they felt was owed to them, and then they distributed the rest to the agency. And I'm hoping that the board will take a look at this process and perhaps reevaluate and streamline that the CQA get the money directly, and then they pay the airport back in return for the space that they occupy. But essentially, the airport cannot function with Customs and Quarantine agencies. So it's kind of like we are hoping that there's a partnership that can be formed to alleviate some of the expenses, the rental expenses that Customs and Quarantine agency has to pay for. Because without CQA, the airport would not be able to open its doors to cargo or even to passengers. Another thing that you might want to keep an eye on is passenger fees. Last term, we were looking to increase passenger fees, but Customs and Quarantine was not able to give us a solid plan and definition of what they would do and how they would implement the passenger fees. And so I'm understanding that perhaps they're going to try and address this issue again. However, I feel that as part of the legislature, they have the fiduciary responsibility, and the jurisdiction does belong to CQA, negotiating with the airport and the airlines. And so I'm hoping that you can work with them, you can work with the leadership at CQA, so the legislature doesn't have to put forth a bill saying that we are going to raise passenger fees for CQA. They have that adjudication process already available to them. And I want to thank you again for giving of your time. This is a very, I don't think many people understand the importance of this agency. This is our port of entry, and it's very dire to our economy. And so this board is a very, very special board, and with a multitude of responsibilities, especially legal aspects that we have to be aware of when we start negotiations or decisions that impact specifically this agency. But again, it will impact our island because it's part of the stepping stone of our economy, as my two colleagues stated earlier. So thank you very much, and you have a good day, and thank all of you for coming and giving testimony on Mr. Bamba's behalf. We really appreciate you taking out that time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we will move forward with Ms. Doyan Marato. And if there's anybody that would like to testify on her behalf, please come forward. You don't want to? All right, we'll start with you first, and then just please state your name for the...
Hafa-Day Senators, my name is Ramona Jones, and I am a long... Gosh, I feel so emotional. Don't do it. Okay, right, I won't do it. I'm a lifelong friend of Doyan's, and by lifelong, I mean that we went to school since elementary together. I've slept over at her house. I know her parents. I know how to say hello and goodbye in Korean and different customs because of her family's warmth towards me. And while she was being raised in this family, I also was able to see how important education was to her parents. She has an older sister who's an attorney, and Doyan was the creative daughter and artistic daughter, and Doyan went on to study art and architecture in college. And she traveled also to Paris and studied architecture there as well. I think that one of the things that's been said several times today is that the experience that we give our visitors is something that we have to think about from the moment that they step off the plane until the time they get back on it. And those bookends are done at the airport. And part of it is some of this hard aspects of which are absolutely critical, the safety of the customer, making sure that the items that are brought in are also safe. But there's also a soft experience, how the place looks. Is it clean? Does it smell good? Is it welcoming? What is the brand of Guam that we're putting out from the very beginning? And Doyon, as an entrepreneur, has been in the branding and digital design industry. She's started her own business. She's promoted our culture. And I think that she would be an outstanding addition to the GIAA board. I have served on a board, and I understand some of the difficulties. You have a loyalty to the person who appointed you, and you also have a responsibility to the people of Guam. And sometimes that can be a challenge to try to figure out really what's the best thing to do. And I can give you my strongest assurance that Doyon is a strong moral character. She's honest, she's charitable, she's thoughtful, and she's smart. So when these issues come before the board, and we can't know all that they would be, I know that the person beside me is going to be somebody that you can trust to put the best interests of our visitors and of our people always in the front of her mind when she's making those decisions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ramona. Doyon, would you like to?
Hafade and annyeonghaseyo, Chairwoman Nelson and honorable senators of the 35th Guam Legislature. I'm honored to be here to give testimony for my appointment as a member of the Board of Directors of the AAB Wonpat International Airport Authority. I appreciate all of you for being here, especially at this time, and to the other senators who are unable to make it, but who will be taking time to consider my confirmation. I truly was not expecting this call to public service, but I'm humbled by the responsibility that the governor has given me and the rest of the airport board of directors and executive manager to operate, improve, and grow Guam's international airport. Some of you have known me throughout the years, some more, some less, some not at all. With that in mind, I would like to share how I came to Guam and why I am so committed to serving our island. I have to first and foremost thank my parents for bringing us to Guam. Their hard work, courage, and ambition to create a future for their family is astonishing to think of. My parents are both from South Korea and moved to Guam in the early 1970s. My father was an architectural engineer for a large Korean construction firm, and my older sister had just been born. Because of the Vietnam War, there was a sudden growth of military personnel on Guam and a need to build infrastructure quickly. When my father's firm decided to pursue work here, he did not hesitate. Not only had he already served as an engineer at a US military base in Vietnam in the middle of the war, slept through a bomb raid and survived, and then returned to Korea safely, he still had the courage to move his family to a small, undeveloped island in the Pacific Ocean. I am proud to say that I was made on Guam, born in Korea, and then raised here since I was a year old. My mother was a champion as she raised her two loving daughters here with no other family around. By the time my friends and I were applying to colleges, we were ready to get out and explore the big city, 4 seasons of weather, and new people. We took Guam for granted as kids, but soon after we had lived away, the beauty of our island, warmth of our people, and our unique Chamorro heritage and culture was glaringly obvious. Since then, Guam has given me so many opportunities, professionally and personally. I met my wonderful husband here, I pursued my career in marketing and design, I became an entrepreneur, and finally started my family here. My love, pride, and appreciation for our island is truly a passion. I not only built my first company, Zori's Only, on promoting the language, culture, and fun idiosyncrasies of Guam in greeting cards, but I am also my own Guam ambassador. My heart hurts inside when a visitor does not have a good experience or a military dependent is not fitting in. My appointment to the Airport Authority the Board of Directors is taken very seriously. I am fully aware and appreciate the importance of our airport in our economy. Not only is it the first impression of our visitors to our island, but it is also the last. It is also where our locals send off their loved ones and greet them with tears of joy when they return. It is a vital part of our economy, our community, and our gateway to the world. I look forward to working with the new board and executive manager and having a continuous flow of dialogue and communication with the legislature and the integral agencies to ensure that we take in all necessary considerations. There are many priorities and tasks that need attention and development, but I can assure you that I will proceed with my duties with the diligence, integrity, and acumen that is needed to efficiently and successfully run this vital part of Guam's present and future. Sijus Masi and Kamsahamnida for your time and consideration of my appointment.
Thank you. I'll open up the questions for some of my colleagues. Senator Tidegui, do you have any questions or statements?
I'm the nice one. I know you. I knew I'd wake those guys up over there. See him over there? Over there? Well, what I know is, agree to disagree. I want to thank you so much. Your resume is so impressive. And the willingness to take the time out to serve the people of Guam in this capacity, thank you. Thank you so much. You know, I asked Sissy about Brian, so I'm going to look at Chris. And Chris, is it okay too with you? Because you do need that family support. And I know you're really, really busy. And it's important that you have them behind you. And I know you do, because Chris has mentioned this to me before about you serving, and he supports it. So that's a good sign you have it. And then watching you and Ramona, you had me in tears here. I was like tearing up, both of you guys. If you guys were going to really let the tears out, I was going to cry with you. You know, to have, and Ramona, I've so respected her for so many years, and what she does for the island, giving back many times over. Having her come and testify, I didn't realize how close you guys were. You know, just seeing you guys tear up every time you looked at each other, I could see you guys are very, very close. And coming from Ramona, having her be here today to support you speaks very well of yourself and character. And I'd like to thank her for being here to do that today. I wish you luck with this, and I hope you still have time with the family. Please incorporate that time for yourself and rest as well. But I'm sure you're going to do a great job, and I'll allow my other colleagues to drill you on the other stuff. Good luck to you. And
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
You have my support. Thank you.
Senator Lee?
Sujus Masi, Madam Chair. I also want to thank the governor for placing forward your nomination. Kamsahamnida, Doyan, and family, for Chris and Nikita. I know it is going to be a big sacrifice for you to take time away from them, to take time away from your work to dedicate to this board. So I want to thank you in advance for saying yes and for putting yourself out there to serve our island. Ramona, thank you very much. It's really important for the committee and for us as senators to hear feedback from the public and from people who've known these nominees their entire lives, because that tells us so much more than what we could read in a packet and what we can see on somebody's CV or resume. So thank you for really bringing all of that to light. That being said, I have had the privilege of knowing Doyan personally and working with her professionally over the last few years, and it's certainly been a privilege of mine, and I know the kind of integrity and hard work that she brings to all of her different roles that she plays. So I'm really excited about her nomination to this board. And Doyan, as I asked Brian in the previous nomination, I do want to ask you about any conflicts of interest that you might have in terms of your business or any businesses that you're affiliated with. And I want to ask about any conflicts of interest that you might have with regard to this board.
Thank you, Senator. I definitely appreciate all of your concern. That would be my same concern for anyone who was joining a board. And And I understand if we did not allow people in the community who are trying to make their own careers or make a living for their families, that they would not be able to serve on a board if there were not rules and regulations in place to make sure that there would be no conflict. And it would not allow anyone to participate in their community if that was the case. And if there were to be any conflict, whether through business or the company that I work for, I would recuse myself. I will immediately actually look into the rules and regulations of the board and what would be in advance the necessary steps to take so that I already know what to look out for, because I would never want to do anything that was a conflict or never have any impression of any improprietary actions or behavior. And that's very important to me in anything that I do. And I would only expect that of my fellow board members, whether on this board or another.
Thank you very much. Actually, earlier today we had an oversight hearing for GPA, and the same kind of issue was brought up in terms of the chairman of the board not being aware of certain aspects of open government law and with regard to illegal pay raises that were given out. And so it's incumbent upon us at each opportunity to kind of remind ourselves what the rules of the game are and to just inform ourselves going forward so we can be as transparent as possible and we can run this government to the highest level of excellence and integrity that our people deserve. So I appreciate that response from you. You also mentioned in your testimony ways that we can operate, improve, and grow our island's airport. So I just wanted to give you an opportunity to inform the committee of maybe some ideas of how we could accomplish that.
Knowing how important and what a significant contribution the airport provides to our economy, it is almost like its own entity. It is a business enterprise. We have to manage it properly. We have to be profitable, and we have to be able to grow with the times and do this all very responsibly and fiscally responsible. And so for me, going in with the new construction that's going on, I would want to, I want to think ahead. I would want to study what is going on. I've already done a site tour of all the construction. And just to make sure, while we still have time during this construction phase, to make sure that we're doing things that are going to last long into the future, and that we're thinking of technology and our varying kinds of tourists and visitors that are coming here, and also with our local population, because we use it just as much as they do, and to implement things like you were saying. I mean, when we travel, especially in the Asia region, and right now that is our current biggest tourist base. It could change at one point, but we should also be thinking of what are they needing as far as traveling to our island. So like the family-friendly restrooms and facilities and amenities, all of those things I think are improvements that we can do as we start looking ahead and making sure that as we are getting creative with our funding. You know, I think with my varying experiences and career paths, I've learned to be able to think resourcefully. My sister being an attorney and many attorney friends, I know how to also think like an attorney in a way. And with my husband and my father and friends who are business owners, in our conversations, learning how they think about how to run a business, how to be I've been an employee too, so I also know what it's like on the other side. And so I really like to look at issues from all different angles and just looking to help make our international airport a thriving business for Guam.
Thank you very much. I also just feel like you get it, in conversations that I've had with you, and I understand really what motivates you to do a lot of the things that you do, and you're a mother. I think that's really important just in terms of wanting to give our children an opportunity and much more opportunities that we probably didn't have when we were growing up, and having that kind of vision for Guam. So again, I just want to thank you for accepting the governor's nomination, and I look forward to supporting your confirmation. Sudos Masi.
Thank you so
Kamsahamnida.
much. Kamsahamnida.
Thank you, Senator Lee. Senator Tulahi?
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. Thank you for the testimony, Ramona, and thank you for accepting this nomination. I agree with Ramona. One of the most important factor, really, that we are supposed to try to gauge is whether, a person who we're putting on a board is going to be able to balance correctly this loyalty to a person who put them on versus, the best interests of all the people of Guam, as much as you can. It's what people, I think, are optimistic about when we change, when we change administrations. That's what they're looking for. That's the hope that they always have when they, change legislatures too. Same thing. They're looking for that. They want to see that, who are you loyal to? Is this a matter of just taking care of your friends, or is it going to really be a matter of taking care of the people? We have very little to gauge that on in reality. As senators, I think I've always felt that challenge. So we appreciate testimony, and, we look at testimony, we look at your resumes, and we look at your, other things that you do in the community to see if when you say, I'm, committed to the community, we try to gauge from these papers whether that's true or not, or from whether we know you. Some of the times we know you very long. So that's why I want to thank everyone for all the testimony today. And thank you for, you have to also, when you serve on these boards, everyone has to put all those things out there for the public. So I know that's not always easy. That was the biggest thing for me. I'm a very private person. I never had to tell anybody, what am I doing with my life until I came into this, public service. So I appreciate you being willing to do that. And they're going to, we're going to ask you now, right, about your conflicts, your business, things like this. So I appreciate you answering. And so attendance at the meetings, is that going to be an issue?
No, not at all.
And the transparency, I talked about this earlier with Brian, but GIAA is really the one everybody's looking at the moment for transparency. They're looking all over the government for transparency. They want it here, they want it everywhere. So it's one of the things I think every member of the board is going to have to step up and find ways, and I'm glad you're a marketing person and you seem to be creative in that type of thing. That how are you going to help the airport show the public, right, what you're doing, why you're doing it, and be as open as possible. And I'm wondering, they're under criticism now. We don't know the reality of, I just want to know, I guess, your thoughts on those kind of things. Transparency and whether we can make procurement fair and not catered towards, friends.
I definitely want to take that issue very seriously, because having been privy to government procurement, the issues that happen, the contests that people bring up when they feel like there's something unfair going on. And how I feel first is the airport is highly regulated. You've got TSA, FAA, customs, quarantine, and so I feel like we have to be extra careful. And I would be anyway, regardless, but there's a whole nother level. I mean, if we jeopardize anything in that regard, it's a major funding source for not just our airport, but for other government agencies. And when you brought up the question of, people will just naturally have a sort of a dilemma, maybe, some more than others, on who they're supposed to be loyal to. Are they supposed to be loyal to themselves, or to the person who appointed them, or to the company or agency or organization that they work for? And I just follow my own set of rules, and that would go anywhere. And the reason why I was partly surprised that the governor nominated me is when we worked on the Guam Women's Chamber of Commerce together as founding board members, I argued with her and disagreed with her quite a few times when I didn't agree, or questioned some of the things that she might have been thinking. And so after she appointed me and I saw her at a function like the following week, I sat down and, of course I thanked her and accepted when I received the call, but I had to ask her, I really wanted to know, why would you choose me for this board? And one of the things she said is, because I know you're not a yes person. She knows I will question when it's needed to be questioned to make sure that I'm making the right decision always.
Well, I appreciate that very much, so thank you. I hope we're able to support you in that.
Thank you.
And GIAA is also an autonomous agency, so they're a little bit different than the rest of the government agencies, and they have a lot more autonomy, right? Some of this autonomy has come up with, for example, GPA recently, right? Their ability to set salaries is different than the rest of the government's ability to do that kind of thing. And I'm just wanted to, I guess, point that out, that that's something else that, there are many reasons that they're going to, that they talk about pay scales being different in these autonomous agencies, but I just think for a person like, in my experience, who's, just a normal, regular person, it always looks a little unfair. It looks a little unfair that autonomous agencies get to set certified pay versus line agencies. They're stuck with waiting for the government's balance sheets to look better, where an autonomous agency can take it's one balance sheet and then do that. So I'm not opposed to raises, but I just think, that we've just got to help each other, right? And so I've seen different ways where the legislature has tried to, get some help from autonomous agencies, and the autonomous agencies have really been restricted because of the covenants that they've entered into with their bonds. For example, sharing land, sharing space with customs is how that comes about, right? So I just want you to be conscious and to be very critical maybe of the covenants that you're entering into as an airport, and how that will affect not just the airport, but all the people of Guam. Because we built that airport for the people of Guam. We want it convenient also for the people of Guam. We want it, to feel like, we want the people to feel like that's their airport. And I've always had an issue with these parking being so very inconvenient sometimes, and it's really changed our culture of seeing people off at the airport because of the restrictions and the hassle it is, and even picking them up. Now we only send one person to the airport versus all of us going to greet them, right? It's changed, if you remember, growing up. So I'm just saying, those are little things maybe in the big global picture of an airport, and I know they're all driven by other factors, perhaps like TSA and different, security reasons. But as much as you can, I'd like to ask you to just bear those things in mind. That this is still our community, and we want our airport to reflect that, and to enhance our quality of life as much as we can. Do you have any, I heard what you said about the improvements for families, and I liked the discussion earlier about the internet. It seems like I can't understand why all airports don't have that, right, for free. So I hope that you can pursue those types of things. But most importantly, yes, I'm glad to have you on the board. I look forward to your ideas, your not being a yes person, and your being able to just be very critical. I think the more critical you are up front, the less problems the airport's going to have in the end, right? And that's what you want for them. So I appreciate you bringing that to the board. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Chalahi. I guess before I continue, I just want to thank my colleagues for all of their input. No man is an island, and I appreciate all the aspects that they touched, from the details of the restrooms to the parking to a lot of the covenants that the airport is under, and then also to the security measures that we take. I know you're here for Mr. Bomba's confirmation hearing, so I don't want to repeat myself, but we have had a meeting, and I've shared a lot of my concerns with you. And I have full faith in the both of you and your capability to move airport forward in a very transparent and thoughtful process to improve also not only the quality of life for the people, but our community as a whole, to improve the services that we give them at the Airport Authority. I'd like to thank your family and everyone that came here to show support for your nominations, and also thank the governor for your appointments. It's a welcomed appointment to have, and good luck, and we wish you the best. Take care.
Thank you very much. And I also want to thank my family and friends that are here in my support, and also my other colleagues and mentors who have submitted written testimony that I'll submit, and I think they've also already submitted to your office.
Absolutely. Okay, this concludes our confirmation hearing. It is now 6:10 in the evening. Thank you and God bless. Good night.
Thank you, Sejus Masi.